What is going on, everybody? We're here. We're live for the weekly Wednesday stream that still has no name. It's nameless. We don't have any ideas. We have no creativity. You guys have suggested so many things, and we can't decide on one. But I imagine someday we'll figure it out. We do not have Jeremy from D-Day Cobra because he's out of town. He's busy. He's doing stuff with the family, whatever. We don't do that. We come to work each and every day, including each and every Wednesday. Me and Suresh from 221B Tactical. What's up, Suresh? How you doing?
What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing good. It's always these streams are at noon Eastern, and our Tuesday night's main event always gets done at like 12:30 or 1 Eastern. So it's always a quick turnaround when we decided to do these streams on Wednesday after our late night streams, but it's all good. We didn't want to miss a week just because Jeremy was gone, and there's just too much to talk about, to be quite honest with you.
Boy, is there ever.
It's nuts, and obviously the entire news cycle that's revolving around Elon and Twitter and everything, that's just pushing it to the next level because it seems like every other day we've got a Twitter files drop or a poll going up about the future of Twitter, things like that happening. So we definitely have a lot to talk about in regards to that today. But I see the chat's saying that Jeremy got race swapped. I see that. Yes, we have gone woke here over at Patriot Outpost. We've gone ahead and race swapped Jeremy. But I think you might enjoy this version better. Okay, you guys might be able to see yourselves in Jeremy now. But no, and I think Suresh, we're planning on, because what our long-term goal is potentially for these political streams, kind of get our feet wet doing these once a week, and then once we get to the Geeks and Gamers house in Orlando, to the studio, we kind of want to do this every day. And if we do ramp this up to every day, we're going to have, people that are coming on recurring guests. And Suresh, you're going to be part of that at least once a week. We don't know. We don't have the day lined up yet, but for sure you're going to be joining us once a week to talk about all this craziness, which will be great.
Yeah, I love it. And they are sure giving us enough to talk about. And I don't even know if we're going to have the, like you said, the time to do this once a week, because right now we have enough stuff to talk about in the news cycle, probably just literally be every day right now. But logistics wise, I know it's going to be a little tough, but once the Geeks and Gamers house is up and running, let me tell you, it's going to be amazing. There's going to be so much content coming out, and we're here for the people, man. We're here to do it.
Hell yeah. Speaking of someone who's for the people, the people love Ukraine. I think that, everybody in the United States is rallied around Ukraine. And we got this news today, Suresh. After nearly a year of war with Russia in Ukraine, with the United States sending, I think, somewhere over $90 billion at this point, and with this new $1.7 trillion spending bill that's trying to be pushed through Congress, an additional $45 billion on the way to Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky is deciding it's a good time for him to come to the United States and talk directly to Biden, talk directly to Congress, get standing ovations from Congress as everyone on both sides of the aisle likely stands up and applauds what an incredible job he's doing. But this is the news that broke today. Ukraine Zelensky to meet with Biden, address Congress in first foreign trip since Russia invasion. And of course, he even sent out a tweet about it. On my way to the U.S. to strengthen resilience and defense capabilities of Ukraine. In particular, POTUS and I will discuss cooperation between Ukraine and United States. Gosh dang it. Don't you hate it when you're just like listening to a YouTube stream and all of a sudden it just starts talking for no reason when it's over? All right, there we go. In particular, POTUS and I will discuss cooperation between Ukraine and the United States. I'll also have a speech at the Congress and a number of bilateral meetings. Now, this is a touchy subject, and it has been a touchy subject since it started. I don't think there's a ton of people that are just, yeah, let's go Russia. We love Russia. But at the same time, there comes a point when we're spending so much money over there in Ukraine for them to defend our borders while completely ignoring our own.
Yeah, I mean, that's the irony of this entire situation. And I know we're going to get to it later on in the chat today, but you have 91 billion to date and more slated to go over there in defense of their borders with Russia. Got it. Everyone knows what's going on there. very few people are talking about how prior to all this happening, how Ukraine was regarded was one of the most corrupt countries in the world. In the world. So how we went in a period of 36 months where it was Ukraine is corrupt, the government's corrupt, and they have a lot of issues, and they're involved in a lot of shady business on the international stage, to now we're sending them $91 billion. And remember, when asked where the money was going, they couldn't quite give an answer. They weren't quite sure where those dollars were going that were being sent to Ukraine. So that was a little bit of a red flag early on. Now he's coming here for what? What's the purpose of this? Your country is at war. It's currently being invaded. And you're going to come here and what? Get on your soapbox in front of Congress? What are you going to say? What's to me, I would like to know, what is the purpose of this? What is the real purpose of coming here to sit here in front of our elected officials that have already given you 91 billion? People are saying he's probably going to come and ask for more money. He's going to get more money. But I don't quite understand the purpose of it. At the same time, we've now, I believe we have Greg Abbott, we have the mayor of El Paso, and we have, I believe now, the mayor of Denver, all declaring states of emergency because of the migrant crisis. So what's happening with our own border? I mean, I don't even know if, forget about 91 billion. I don't know if 91 million has been sent to our border towns to help with this crisis. So it's a little bit of slap in the face to every American right now to have this guy come over here and grandstand and do what we're not sure. I personally, I don't know how I feel about that, because as an American, which, dare I say that, we'll get into that in a minute. But as an American, I know Stanford doesn't agree, but I'm looking at what about our country? What's going on with our country? I understand our role in taking care of other nations and other nation states on that world stage. I get it, and I know there's a value there, but you can't kind of let your home fall apart, right? Like you would never when you bring it down, if your roof was leaking, your windows were broken, and your doors on your home, all the locks were broken, it wouldn't make sense for you to grab your toolbox and, grab your truck full of parts and tools and go to your neighbor's house and help fix their house when your house is falling apart from the inside. So you wouldn't even remotely do that in your own home or your own apartment. We're doing it as a nation. Makes no sense.
Yeah, and it's so ironic that, a month and a half after the midterms, all of a sudden now, according to CNN and according to Democratic lawmakers throughout the United States and different, in different states and everything like that, they're saying everyone can now agree we have a border crisis. Isn't that convenient that you're admitting that now, after the midterms, after you tried to pretend everything was okay, when in reality, these couple of years of Joe Biden have been the worst we've ever seen at the border in terms of people coming across. And with a regulation that was put in place during COVID that, Trump and others were able to kind of utilize to their advantage to reject people away, except for like asylum seekers, that's about to expire, and it's just going to get even worse. We're talking like 5 times worse at the border, because people know this country is just open for business. And it's laughable at this point. And this is not just when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to the Ukraine situation, it's not just, say, Democrats, it's everybody. I mean, Drew Hernandez tweeted this out earlier. Mitch McConnell's just sitting there, on the floor of the Senate, saying, hey, we need to hurry this stuff up. We need to hurry up and give all this money to Ukraine. You brought the number up, Suresh. U.S. spending to counter the Russian war effort exceeds the first 5 years of war costs in Afghanistan, where we were actually there. That is absolutely insane that we're sending that much money to the corrupt state of Ukraine. You're 1,000% spot on. This is the same Ukraine that Democrats for years have been trying to push in connection to try to get Donald Trump impeached. It's the same Ukraine that's had all these problems. They're Russia light. That's who they are.
Yep.
Like they're basically just as corrupt as Russia. And obviously there's a lot of Russian influence there, always has been, always will be, because of the history of this country and because of its location. And I feel for the people of Ukraine, you know, because they're obviously caught up in a lot of this stuff. Nobody wants something like that coming to their door, certainly. But at the same time, we have to think about ourselves. This spending bill is rife with money protecting everyone else's borders but our own. And I think Americans are sick and tired of it. They're sick and tired of seeing this actor, an actual actor in Zelensky. The reason he's coming here is just to grandstand. It's just a PR move. It's to show the world that America has his back. It's to show his people that America has his back. The same reason he's been doing stuff on green screens. He's a fake dude. He's fake as shit. And all the celebrities have embraced him. All the politicians on both sides of the aisle have embraced him because they think politically it's the right thing to do. And Americans are getting really tired of giving billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine.
Yeah, no one's really talking about the effect of that, right? So the Fed just raised rates to the highest point I think they've been in, I believe, 50 years, if I'm not mistaken. And what does that mean? That means that for Americans, going and buying a car, your interest rate is going to be out of control. Going and buying a home, your interest rate is going to be so much that you probably can't now afford a home that you could have afforded just 24 months ago, 18 months ago. What does that mean for people with adjustable rate mortgages? Well, your payments are now going to go up by, in some cases, $500 to $600 a month. The average American cannot afford that. But why is that happening? Well, there was a little bit of a progression, right? We went into a recession. We had two negative quarters of negative GDP, and that was the definition of a recession until Joe Biden came into office. Then they changed it and they said, well, no, look, we created 1 million new jobs. We're not in a recession. That old definition, no, that doesn't really, hold water anymore. Well, that 1 million new jobs report allowed things to change, and it allowed a shift. And then what happened from that? Well, as a result of that, interest rates shifted. It shouldn't have happened, but it did happen off of that report. But look what happened. The Philadelphia Reserve just said, hey, oh, by the way, that 1 million new jobs that Joe Biden went in front of the podium and said to the American people, the 1 million new jobs, we did a little digging. It didn't take long, and the number was actually 10,000. So he was off by 1 million on his million number. Well, it's too late. The damage was already done. And now who's paying for it? The American people. The American people are paying for it out of their own pockets and their own bank accounts. So when you see these people who are putting the Ukraine flag on their Facebook profile circle and all this stuff, and I stand with Ukraine and all this stuff, and you have Zelensky coming here, they don't realize they are slowly killing themselves. Death by 1,000 cuts at the gas pump, at the grocery store, the bills they're paying every single month, and it is all a trickle effect from sending billions. Now we're going to be over 120 billion if the new spending bill passes and goes through. And what the average American is slowly dying. And one of the key indicators I just read about was something that no one is talking about in the news. Car repossession rates have now exceeded, I think, what they were for from 2019 and the 3 years prior. Car repossession rates. Americans, for the first time in over a couple of decades, are having to put their utility bills on credit cards. And these credit cards, of course, the rates are going up. So do you see the whole cycle here? And no one's talking about it. And what are we doing? Let's bring in Zelensky, and he's going to ask for another 30 billion, 40 billion in the new bill. And don't worry about it. We have the money. You know where they have the money? Changing the rates and trying to suck the American people dry, and the people are suffering.
It's such a tough thing going on right now with the interest rates and with inflation, because in theory, the reason that they're raising these interest rates is to arrest inflation, right? So, hey, if we increase the interest rates for cars and houses, people will stop buying them at the crazy rate that they were, right? So for that to happen, then what happens? Well, housing prices will come down. Some of these places like Florida, you've seen like insane housing prices as more and more people are coming here. The demand for houses is shooting up and the supply can't match it. But the problem is that's like one thing that they're attempting to do to arrest inflation, just raising interest rates. They're not doing all of the other things that they should be doing to arrest inflation, like maybe stop spending money that we don't have. Stop spending $45 billion on Ukraine. Stop going like these ridiculous $1 trillion deficits, because that also is devaluing everything. So you're not going to be able to fix this problem simply by raising interest rates. All it's going to do is put regular Americans in a terrible position. And that's what we've seen happen across the board. And like the pace we're at inflation wise is not good when you look at other countries that have had a history of things like this. We don't want to be taking wheelbarrows of dollars down to buy loaves of bread, right? That's like this is the kind of thing that starts that in motion.
Yep. It's a slippery slope and it happens fast.
Yeah. We got a couple super chats we're going to read here and move on to the next topic. Thank you guys for being here. We appreciate it. Chef Nick Nero for $5. Jeremy officially steps down. Don't lie, Ryan. Jeremy's on the poll. Yes, Jeremy was ready to officially step down as at Geeks and Gamers until some 3 a.m. trucks came in and dropped off some new votes, so he does not have to step down, fortunately for him. Lulu for $5 with the super sticker. Thank you, Lulu. Appreciate you. Gerald Armstrong for 2, money laundered. Yeah, doesn't it happen to be such a coincidence that at the same time all this money is going to Ukraine, that FTX gets caught up in things where it looks like they received a lot of money potentially from Ukraine that they put in the pockets of Democratic lawmakers who then subsequently sent money to Ukraine. It's weird how all that works.
It was, I mean, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. When you see, and especially now with what happened with the latest Twitter files release, files release number 7, and you're seeing some of what was on the laptop from hell and the tie to Ukraine and some of the documentation that was on that device. I don't know. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green Party. I don't care who you are. If you see with your own 2 eyes money going from our government to a country, that country gives money to a company. That company gives money back to members of a certain political party in our country where the original money came from. And you see it all. It's all tracked. It's all in black and white. I don't know how anyone can look at that and say, yeah, there's no problem here. This looks completely legit. It's completely normal. Anyone who looks at that and says, no problem here, this is fine, I don't know what we're looking at, is to me either you're just so completely mentally unaware, or you have a serious case of Trump derangement syndrome, because you just can't possibly utter a word that Joe Biden might be in any way, shape, or form somewhat involved in some sort of shady business. You just can't say it, because if you do say that, somehow you think you're supporting Trump, which is the craziest thing in the world. And you are ignoring what is in front of you. It's like the people currently right now ignoring the stuff that came out in this latest Twitter release. They're just ignoring it. I'm like, wait a second, it's in black and white. Here's the document right here. It's an email from this guy to this guy saying this. They're like, that's not real. And I'm like, what? Are we in like the Shaggy song? It wasn't me. Caught you on the kitchen floor. No, it wasn't me. Like, caught you in the shower. No, it wasn't me. Like how do you deny that at this point?
Yeah, we have so much stuff now through these Twitter files. For months and years, people have been denying that any of this is taking place. They've been denying that Twitter was, censoring right-wing figures. No, nothing like that. You guys just can't follow the rules. Things like that were said time and time again. Now, through the Twitter files, through these dumps, we have it proven time and time again that no, the FBI did come to Twitter. They did come to collude with Twitter. The United States government colluded with Twitter to deplatform Americans, to censor Americans. We even have the bill. We have the bill that it cost. Twitter files, FBI paid company $3.4 million in tax dollars for administrative costs. And
they showed the receipt. They showed the receipt.
They said, hey, we've collected $3.4 million from the FBI. They were really excited about that. And another way to put it, FBI paid Twitter $3.4 million for doing its dirty work on users, damning email shows. This is all at the same time that we do have this confirmation. People asked on the initial Twitter files on the Hunter Biden laptop, well, nothing there says that the FBI specifically contacted them about Hunter Biden. Okay, well, now we have that. Twitter files show FBI pressured Twitter to censor Hunter Biden stories. They worked directly with Yoel Roth multiple times over a period of months and months. All these emails, all these documents that were sent to convince Yoel Roth that this was a Russian hack story, that this was a fake news story. It was Russian propaganda. Like, we have that now. FBI agent Elvis Chan and other law enforcement agencies repeatedly primed Yoel Roth to dismiss reports of Hunter Biden's laptop as a Russian hack and leak operation, but no intelligence existed of such an operation. You have the FBI working with Twitter to censor a story that could have had a big outcome on the election of the United States president. And now you have the receipt showing that the FBI paid off Twitter for censoring a bunch of users, for doing exactly what they wanted them to do. It doesn't get much more corrupt than that.
Once again, the people that are still somehow trying to talk around this and trying to deny the reality of this situation is absolutely blowing my mind. Some of these people on this left that have completely detached themselves from what is going on planet Earth are literally denying this. And like you said, you're showing the receipts, but here's what's one of the most troubling things I read. It said that the FBI had this information since 2019. So when it's not like there was a sliver of truth to they weren't sure what was on the laptop, they weren't sure if the information was valid. I was kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt in that, where they were like, hey, this isn't verified, don't let this get out yet because it may not be legit. And I was giving them the benefit of the doubt there. I have friends that have worked for the FBI, I have friends that work for the federal government, and they're good people. But when I found out that they had it since 2019 and they had all the information on the laptop verified and still went to Twitter and said, hey, this might be Russian, to me, that's where you lose it. That's where you lose it. You knew the information was legit. You knew it was not Russian disinformation. And now all the evidence is out there in black and white to show you knew it was authentic. You knew the laptop was real. You knew the emails on it were real. You knew all the communications that were found on the laptop were real. And after that, after having it for months and months and months, you still went to the media outlets and to the social media networks and said, this might be Russian disinformation. Blatant lie. They lied. It was a lie. They knew, and altered the information that was being disseminated to the American people, and subsequently could have shifted an election, a very important election. So I've said this before. I said it on my last video. This is a level of corruption that we probably, Ryan, we haven't seen in our lifetime. However, look at how it's being treated. Now, you know, and I know that if the actors in this story were replaced, and you replaced Donald Trump, we interchanged with Joe Biden, and Donald Trump Jr. with Hunter Biden, where would this story be right now, and what would be happening? If documentation came out from Twitter that Donald Trump somehow was involved in getting the FBI to censor stories about him and his son and corrupt business dealings with foreign countries like Ukraine, can you imagine what would be happening in the news cycle right now? We probably wouldn't even be on this stream because the bandwidth wouldn't be able to support this stream, because they'd be just pushing stories talking about the Donald Trump Jr. laptop. And that would be it. They'd probably be burning Mar-a-Lago down right now. But
look at what they did when there was nothing with Ukraine. Like they tried to impeach him. You know what I mean? They tried to get rid of this guy. They tried to take him down as president because of nothing, because of a nothing burger. That's where we're at. And you're 1,000% correct that if the shoe was on another foot, it would be treated completely different by the media, as we've seen time and time again. And yeah, the FBI had it for 10 months. The FBI knew that it was there. They had it. Whether whether some people didn't take it seriously, whether they were trying to cover it up, a lot of those things, I guess, are yet to be determined. But no doubt that they had no reason to believe that it was Russian disinformation. This was real. And, I think that the Trump campaign strategically held on to it, to release it a little bit before, thinking that just like with nearly everything that happens at elections like this, hey, that'd probably be a good time to release something like that right before the Americans really decide who I'm going to vote for this. And they got their legs cut out from under them by the mainstream media, by the social media networks who are operating with deep state actors. That's who it was. Like, you have people in the deep state that want to prevent Donald Trump from being elected. Some of those on the left, some of those on the right. Obviously, Donald Trump has a lot of enemies everywhere, and they would rather have Joe Biden in power because he can probably be easily controlled and manipulated. And that's just the reality of the situation. And now we're sitting here with the admission from social media companies. Because guess what? It ain't just Twitter. Zuckerberg said on Joe Rogan that he had the FBI come to him and say, hey, there's going to be some Russian operations. And that's why we decided to censor the Hunter Biden thing. So I guarantee you this stuff's going on at Twitter. It's going on at Facebook. It's going on with YouTube. It's going on with everything. Like, that is the reality of this situation. That's why they tried so hard to censor anybody who was talking about it. But you can't roll this back. The mainstream media might refuse to cover it, but enough people are getting the word out that now nobody can not hear about it.
And I feel the true victims here are the American people, Ryan. I mean, the people watching this right now and the people around this great country who love this country and believe in what America can be. They're the true victims here, because now we're at a point, as the release of this information is coming out, where who can sit here and say, I'm just going to believe what the media puts out. I'm going to believe that the government has our best interest in mind and is authentic and genuine. If you're at a point as an American where you can't trust the media because clearly they can get paid for and bought by federal law enforcement agencies, you can't trust federal law enforcement agencies, and you can't trust the people in power because they utilize federal law enforcement agencies to get to power. What can we believe in as Americans? What's real anymore?
Yeah. I think that trust in our institutions is likely at an all-time low. I don't think there's any doubt about that, whether it's election integrity, whether it's things like the FBI, both houses of Congress at this point, everything. And that's not a good place to be. And no, and it's not the American people's fault. It's the government's fault. It is their fault for doing these things. What we have going on with this Hunter Biden story, with this censorship of Americans on social media, this is a million times worse than what Nixon got in trouble for, than Watergate. It's not even close. And this is just the tip of the iceberg when it does come to government corruption. But this is just the first time I think it's been just so out for everybody to see like that. But let's get a couple of these. Scott McKenzie for 5. So many unintended consequences of open border, from drugs, human trafficking, bolstering cartels, criminal crossing, abuse, etc. Impeach Biden. I mean, the number of people dying from fentanyl is extraordinary. Like, unimaginable. That's the leading cause of death, I think, for people under the age of 40 or something like that.
And no one's talking about it. Fentanyl. No one's talking about it.
That is tragic. That's legitimately tragic. And it's tough to even imagine something like that, because when most people think of drugs that are coming across the border, they're thinking of other things. They're not thinking about the thing that they cut it with to maybe make it more potent. And it's killing people in droves. But when you allow these borders crossings, you let everything in.
Yeah.
Zenny Biscuit for $5. Elon wants someone foolish for CEO, right? How about drunk 3PO? Well, I think he would take the job. We may as well talk about that, since that's on the docket. People weren't sure exactly what would happen when Elon Musk took over Twitter, but the past month and a half or so have obviously been fun. He's been taking the piss out of nearly everybody he possibly can, but he's also come under a lot of criticism, mostly from the left, predominantly from the left, but a little bit from the right when certain policies come out, such as trying to ban any competing social media platform links from being shared on Twitter. That very quickly got reversed after backlash. But Elon Musk put a poll out the other day that, hey, should I step down as head of Twitter? And it got 57% yes votes. Now, are those all legitimate votes or some of those bots? Who knows? I know one thing for sure. Elon Musk wouldn't put up a poll like that unless he was already planning on stepping down. And he did confirm that he will be stepping down as the CEO as soon as he can find someone foolish enough to take the spot. Now, much to some leftists like heartbreak, I guess, he's not going anywhere. He's not like selling Twitter. He's just not going to be the CEO. He's still going to be involved on the software side of things. And I'm sure that nothing's going to happen at that company without his decision or his will being put into it. But he is looking for someone to run day to day. And I honestly think that's the right thing. As much as I like what Elon Musk does, he's got other stuff to do.
I was just going to say, I mean, the guy has his hands full. I mean, he has so many other companies and he has interests in businesses that the most people don't even know about. So he has quite a bit going on. And this, the Twitter thing, Twitter is big and important for a lot of, average folks. And, I know that this was something he wanted to jump in on and kind of, let me say, right the ship and do what he's doing with exposing some of the corruption and things like that. But he's not going to direct his energy to someone of his capacity from an intelligence standpoint and an intellect standpoint. Really shouldn't be wasting his time running a social media company. I think that he'll put the right people in place and the company will continue on the path that it's currently on, which is what the American people want. Well, at least honest American people want an honest social media platform. Dishonest and disingenuous Americans who are upset right now that the truth is coming out, all of a sudden, the same people that didn't like Donald Trump for and said he was a liar now are somehow upset that Elon Musk is exposing the truth. So you don't like a liar, but you also don't like a social media platform shifting and exposing the truth. So where do you stand? Like, well, what do you want here? So I think, everyone knows it's going to be a matter of time before he appoints a new CEO. But like you said, he'll still have a finger on the pulse of everything that's going on there. I find it hard to believe some of the stories I'm hearing about Jack Dorsey and some of this stuff that was going on at Twitter while he was at the helm, and he had no idea. He simply had no idea any of it was going on. I mean, do you believe that, Ryan? Do you believe that some of these things with the FBI, the CIA, these censorship things, and they're claiming that Dorsey, this was all done without his knowledge?
A lot of it was, yeah. That is one thing that I find a little suspicious in the Twitter files is how so many of them are like, CEO Jack Dorsey was not aware of these. You know what I mean? It's like, that does seem a little suspicious to me. At the same time, CEOs of a massive global company like this, who also does other stuff. Jack Dorsey is involved in other things than just Twitter, much like Elon Musk. So for a guy who's been there for years and years and years, how in touch is he with day-to-day operations? Weekly meetings with the FBI that like Yoel Roth is having and things like that. I think that probably the way most CEOs would run a company, it's like, how involved is Zuckerberg exactly in a lot of these things? Yeah. These are questions, and I don't really have an answer to them. I don't trust Jack Dorsey, but at the same time, based on what I've seen from him, I could see how he just wasn't aware of some of the stuff going on and may have been a little more concerned if he knew, but also would have been looked the other way because he thought it was the right thing to do. So I don't trust him. I think he's kind of an idiot, but at the same time, how closely is a CEO monitoring some of these things? And how much are people in his own company keeping from him? Yeah. We saw Yoel Roth, the guy who's behind all this shit. He was still there after Elon took over. Elon was retweeting him, and he was saying, hey, here's Yoel. He has a lot of the details here. This is a dude who was operating against everything that Elon Musk stood for forever, but Yoel Roth was able to fool him for the first month or so at Twitter. So, right. I think that maybe we overestimate how much involvement most CEOs have in a company like this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, the scale of the company, most people can't even wrap their head around. You know, me at 221B Tactical with our less than a dozen employees. It's complete. I can have a finger on the pulse of everything that's going on, but when you get to that scale, it's completely crazy. What's also completely crazy is Elon Musk has eliminated. I think the number is 75% of the employees at Twitter, and Twitter is running just fine. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like really all you need are the servers to keep Twitter running. You don't need the HR reps. You don't need all these women that are there to fucking talk about what design they want to change the logo to next, or drink wine all day. Like whatever all these people are actually doing at Twitter. You don't need all those jobs. You need bare bones. You need engineers. You need coders. You need things like that. That's what is necessary to keep Twitter running. Remember, like, everybody in the mainstream media was saying, oh, it's about to die. Twitter's about to be dead, blah, blah, blah. Didn't happen. Like, not even close to happening. So pathetic.
Yeah,
like,
it's unbelievable.
It's great to see. Pepe Payne for $5 over on Rumble says, yo, just check out Operation Northwoods, then connected to every event since. Yes, Operation Northwoods. I've heard of it. Thank you, Pepe. The government lies and lies, but we're the true fools for continuing to use them as verified news. Thank you over on Rumble. Johnny the Whiz Kid for $2. I wish Elon wasn't leaving. Why is he doing this? He's got other shit to do. I think it'll be good.
And he's not leaving for good, or completely.
Yeah, he's just not going to be the CEO. He's not going to spend 8 hours a day doing Twitter stuff.
Yeah.
Gerald Armstrong for $5. Another reason why the Second Amendment is the most important right. More important than the right to vote. The government has a monopoly on violence. Certainly seems like it, doesn't it?
Yep.
And I know a lot of people aren't going to give their shit up no matter what happens, regardless of how hard these people try. Even to the point of, Becky brings it up in the chat, you even have some colleges trying to, they don't want you to consider yourself an American. That's just too offensive.
Oh my God.
We got to talk about this.
It's absolutely bananas.
We have seen the college institutions in the United States of America over the last several decades. They've always been very progressive, but recently they've just become a bastion for woke lunacy. And that's what's indoctrinating, every single generation that goes through these universities at this point. And now this story coming out of Stanford, I wish I could say it's surprising. I wish I could say it's shocking. But based on what we've seen, it really isn't. Don't call yourself an American. Stanford initiative is criticized online. What the elimination of harmful language initiative is and why people are talking about it. A Stanford University internal review published earlier this year has received criticism on social media this week after a Wall Street Journal editorial highlighted its recommended list of harmful language. The term American is included under the, quote, imprecise language category, while the authors of the index instead recommend using U.S. citizen. Because if you call yourself an American, it means the United States is the most important country in America, in all the Americas, and that's 42 other countries, and that is not okay. Look at some of the other things here. I want to blow this up.
Oh my God. The list will make your head spin. Like, here's what... This is like the epitome of where we are as a country. The country is literally falling apart at the seams, and you have this, that calling yourself an American is somehow, in some way, a harmful, bad, or negative thing. I mean, at what, and so who determined that? That's a question. Who this is a completely an opinion based thing, and now they're saying, okay, U.S. citizen. Okay, let's play devil's advocate. Well, I feel that saying U.S. citizen is somehow putting you above citizens of other countries. So U.S. citizen is racist, or whatever ist that is. Yeah. So I personally think, listen, I know people who
aren't U.S. citizens yet. They came here illegally. Their parents came here illegally. They don't have citizenship. And by calling yourself a U.S. citizen, I think that's putting you at a level above them, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a conversation that will be had in these college campuses. Look at this list. Instead of abort, consider using cancel or end. This term can unintentionally raise religious/moral concerns over abortion. Okay. American, U.S. citizen. This term often refers to people from the United States only, thereby insinuating that the U.S. is the most important country in the Americas. Instead of using child prostitute, use child who has been trafficked. Using first-person language help to not define people by one of their characteristics. One of my favorite ones. Instead of circle the wagon, say take a defensive position. Hollywood movies about settlers migrating west contribute greatly to the formation of this phrase, which meant that savages are coming and a group of white people is about to be attacked. It paints indigenous peoples as the aggressors. This is
Who says that?
insane.
Like, who even thought about this? I saw the one. I don't know if you can see it here. You have to scroll to it. Hispanic. Hispanic can no longer be used or should be used, and it should be Latin X, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have spoken to, I don't know how many people of Hispanic heritage, and they say Latinx is the stupidest and the most nonsensical thing that they've ever heard, and they don't want to be. I have not spoken to a single person of Hispanic descent that has said, no, I like Latinx. No, Latinx, that's what I prefer. So, the people who put that on the list, not one of them was Hispanic. That. It was some white person. So they're all like, oh, that's too white. That's white supremacy, white this. I want to know how many white people were involved in doing this study and, making this list, because it's all people most of the time that are not involved with this. It was like the white girl, the blonde hair, blue-eyed white girl who lived in a mansion in some suburb of California, who got all up in arms because she saw something at Trader Joe's and their Hispanic line of food was called Trader Jose's. And she started this national petition to get Trader Joe's to get rid of Trader Jose's Hispanic line of food because she felt it was racist against Hispanic people. Not a single Hispanic person had a problem with that. This is the same thing we're seeing. We're just seeing people who, for some reason, think something's offensive, don't really care about the people who are the target or the actual audience, and they're doing studies like this.
And look at this. 2% is the number. You need to talk to 50 Hispanic people, Suresh, in order to get one to say yes. That's what the poll says. 2% of Hispanic people actually would refer to themselves or would like to be referred to as Latinx. It's not reality.
Here we are.
And here we are with Stanford saying that you can't say Hispanic. That's weird because 68% of them would like to be called Hispanic.
You cannot make this up. This is like mental illness gone awry.
And here's the one for the white people, to protect the white people. Karen. Instead of using Karen, say demanding or entitled white woman. Which means that Karen, in these people's minds, can only be described to use as a white woman. That's the only person who could be a Karen.
That's it. So you got to have the short hair, the crop haircut, and then you're a Karen. Only white people. I don't know who is actually saying, hey, we need to put this paper together and talk about words that are no longer good to use or appropriate to use or whatever. I don't know who's behind all this. I don't know if they just don't have anything to do with their time. They don't, they need to spend grant money. I don't know what it is, but we have this. To me, is almost a slap in the face of, we have veterans on our street that are right now freezing to death. They are not getting the care they need from the VA because the VA is too busy taking care of people coming across our border illegally. That's a true verified story. You have people that are suffering can't pay their bills, can't put gas in their car, can't put food on their table. And here we are spending time, money, resources at one of the most allegedly prestigious universities in our country, talking about what words we shouldn't use anymore because it might be offensive to a certain group of people. Yet when asked, that group of people, 68%, nearly 70%, are like, yeah, we don't care about that. No, actually, we would not want to be called that. So
they don't like it. You're bastardizing their language. You know what I mean? Like that's what you're bastardizing the entire language of these people by saying Latinx. Latino and Latina like have an actual like usage. It's an actual part of their language. There's rules that are associated with it. When you would use one, when you would use the other, and it's all an effort to appease. Reality, this is not about Latino people. This is about non-binary people.
Yeah,
that's really what this is about. It's about the LGBTQ mafia. It's about the Rainbow Coalition. That's really what this is all about, because we can't have a language in and of itself inherently be gendered, because that doesn't account for the people that are non-binary or whatever the fuck they consider themselves. That's really where this push is coming from. Spoiler alert, Hispanics are not the type of people that you can push that stuff on. No. They're going to reject it very quickly. And it's a reason that we do continue to see sometimes Republicans make these massive gains, like here in the state of Florida with Hispanic voters, because inherently a lot of these people are just more conservative in terms of their social values. So you push that stuff on them, they are very quickly going to walk the other way.
Yeah, and we like you said, we're seeing it in Florida. I think you're going to see it around the nation. Hispanic people are coming to this country for whatever it's worth, and whoever wants to say whatever. They're coming here for a better life for themselves and their family, and they're coming here to work and earn wages and put that money away. Some want to build a better life here. Some want to send that money back to their home country to take care of their family that's remaining back there. So no matter how you slice it, obviously that's what you want to do. Of course, like Donald Trump and many others have said, of course there's that small element that are coming here for nefarious reasons, and they're coming here and they're trafficking drugs and trafficking women and children. Yeah, of course, that's a small element. But, for the most part, the people that are coming, it's illegal, of course, and there should be a legal way to do it. But they're flooding into this country, and they're thinking, a lot of people have said, oh, they're trying to build a Democratic base. They're trying to build a Democratic base. Well, first of all, how are these people going to vote? Do they vote? I mean, I don't know. And from what I know and the people I talk to, I know a lot of people in the Hispanic community that have come here from outside the country. They don't vote. Okay. The other thing is, like you just hit on, Ryan, their morals and the things that are the foundations in that culture don't align with what's going on right now. You go to Hispanic people and you start spinning this, hey, really, there is no gender. The typical nuclear family is not really important. There's this, that, everything's fluid. Hispanic people don't align with that at all. So as time goes on and they keep pushing this, what are they going to do? You're going to lose them. You're going to lose them because that's not where they stand. And I don't understand the premise of it. Like you and I sitting here know that. How can these people in Washington not know that?
I think maybe because we actually live in the real world, we talk to these people. We don't consider ourselves like elitists or anything. Like the town I grew up in had a really high Hispanic population, in large part because the county I grew up in had bunch of RV factories. So a lot of people just came there for work. There was a sign on the border of Mexico that said, come to this city in Indiana for work, right? I actually said that,
wow.
Back when they were making RVs and things like that all the time there. But I think something like 35% of my high school graduating class was Hispanic. You know what I mean? So like, if you've actually lived and like had experiences, you can understand that. But I think a lot of people who are trying to push this stuff have no clue what they're talking about. And it's blatantly obvious.
Yeah. Go back to that clip of Kelly. I think it was Kelly Osbourne on The View saying, hey, Donald Trump, you're so against Hispanics. Well, if you don't let the Hispanics into this country, who's going to clean your toilet? And
Yeah.
to me, that's the level of understanding that they have. And every once in a while, despite what they try to position themselves as, the truth comes out and statements like that come out, and that's how they really feel.
Yeah, sometimes you can't hide it. If you don't let these people into the country, who's going to do the dirty work? Who's going to do these meaningless tasks that Americans don't want to do? It's like, do you hear what you're saying right now?
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi said, "Yeah, I don't know why you don't want to. I don't know why Ron DeSantis wouldn't want the migrants in Florida. Who's going to pick the crops?" Like,
God.
she said that at a podium at a news conference. Like,
Mhm.
absolutely unbelievable. And people just ignore it. They're just like, oh, but if Donald Trump said that, oh my God, or Ron DeSantis said that, oh my God, forget about it. It would be like, they would get like banner planes pulling it around the country.
Did you see, this is a random aside. Did you see what Mike Lindell said about Ron DeSantis's victory in Miami-Dade County?
No.
Mike Lindell thinks it's really suspicious, and he's going to do an audit because he thinks that DeSantis may have stolen the election in Florida.
Mike Lindell?
Yes.
Wow. For what reason would he be like trying to stir the pot?
I can think of a reason, but
trying to push Trump.
Yeah, that's what I think. But
wow.
Yes, Mike Lindell to audit DeSantis' historic reelection win. I don't believe it.
Wow.
And yeah, and I listen. I like my pillow. Mike Lindell's a cool guy. I think that is ridiculous. I think that is absolutely insane to immediately jump to that instead of the reality that DeSantis has been a great governor for the state of Florida. And there's no doubt that Ron DeSantis would not be Ron DeSantis without Donald Trump. No doubt at all. He wouldn't have won the election in the first place against crackhead Andrew Gillum, or sorry, meth head Andrew Gillum, without the help of Donald Trump. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, to float that out there, that it can't be possible that Miami-Dade County would go red without a Republican stealing the election. One, that's terrible fucking messaging. It makes him look like an idiot. It makes a lot of other people look like idiots, but it just further pushes this divide between these guys coming up in this primary. And it's insane to me.
Wow. What a sad, I'm really sad to hear that. Like you said, I think we know why that's coming out, but you know what? It's just, to me, people across the country are losing faith in the election process. Looking at the story that we just shared in the in our private chat here. Breaking news: Maricopa County admits they do not count ballots at vote centers, which is required by state law. So this is involving the Kari Lake Katie Hobbs saga. And here you go. County admits they don't count ballots at the vote center. So once again, these stories keep coming out, Ryan, that are eroding the Americans' people trust in the systems that are in place that should be, at this point in 2022, pretty solid. They should be pretty solid systems, and they should be pretty dependable. But here you have yet again another situation where you have something that should have been black and white in place, a law, a rule, something set in stone. This is how it's done, and it's not followed. You had Katie Hobbs in that race, overseeing, as Secretary of State, overseeing the election results of the election that she was a part of. I mean, can you imagine they allowed Donald Trump to oversee the election results of 2024 presidential election? I mean, like, it's just it's craziness, and they just expect people to like be okay with it. And there is a lot of erosion of the trust in the system, but you look at something where a county historically has gone Democratic and has a lot of Hispanic voters, like you and I just touched on. The sentiment of the Hispanic people is shifting, and they're not about a lot of this woke BS. That's not those aren't the morals and ideals they stand for. So it makes very much sense to me that we had that county shift here in South Florida that had never, because that's South Florida, Miami-Dade area. Everyone knows there's a lot of Hispanic population there. So that didn't come as a surprise to me at all. So to hear that Mike Lindell is trying to, stir the pot and cause trouble down there, it to me, that makes no sense at all. Meanwhile, you have someone involved in an election counting the ballots, and now they're saying not only was the person involved in that election in charge of counting the ballots, they didn't even count the ballots the way they should have. Come on, we got bigger fish to fry here.
Yeah, and that's all playing out in court right now, and it's good that Kari Lake is getting her day in court. You know what I mean? To see all this stuff play out, to see exactly what's been going on in Arizona. And it'll be interesting to see what does come out, because they threw out a couple of the claims, but there are still a couple that are continuing to move forward in court. So they can hopefully unveil some of this disgusting shit that is going on in Arizona. But yeah, when it comes to the Florida stuff, I was just shaking my head when I saw what Mike Lindell said. Especially in Miami, because again, we shouldn't act like all Hispanic people are exactly the same. There are people with much different values, whether you're talking about if they're coming from El Salvador or Mexico, or they had family from Cuba. It turns out that a lot of people who may have had family that are in Cuba, they might be a little bit fucking conservative because they have seen the horrors of communism firsthand. Their grandparents fucking tell them stories and warn them about what the fuck is going on. So yeah, I was happy to see that. We were there together when we saw that ridiculous Dade County at the DeSantis election party, and that was shocking even for a lot of people there. So it just tells me that Florida is the template that we need to continue to use to take to the rest of the United States. I did want to take one. We mentioned it briefly, but since I did put the spending bill up there in the title, I want to just real quick talk about where some of the priorities are for this spending bill. America Last, $1.7 trillion omnibus bill to fund border security for Arab nations. And not just Arab nations, but of course, Ukraine as well. $45 billion in emergency assistance to Ukraine and NATO allies. Disaster relief, National Institute of Health, things like that. Nearly $7 billion to combat HIV and AIDS in foreign nations. Hundreds of billions to a variety of democratic pet causes, including an LGBTQ plus museum and a federal building named after Nancy Pelosi, as well as money for Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, Oman, all these things for them to enhance their border security. All the while, we can't get enough funding to build a wall for ours. Isn't that interesting? But Rand Paul is one of the people making a stand about this. You saw him take the entire fucking bill out that they only had a couple days to read, 4,000 pages, and make a big show of it. You can even see 1.7 trillion of hazardous debt, little warning signs and stuff as he does the charade. But when you look at some of the line items here, Department of Transportation, Highway Infrastructure Program, Michelle Obama Trail, Path Trail Project, $3.6 million. The reality is a lot of these things are going to get called out, but they're not going to get changed because we see this every single year with these spending bills. Yeah. Are there a bunch of Democratic pet projects in here? Yes. You know what there also is? Republican projects.
100%.
Now, some of them are valid. Some of them are not. But if, say, Daniel Webster right here, County Road 466 Alpha, Daniel Webster is actually my congressman. Say, what if Daniel Webster, if he decides to take a stand and get this person, Michelle Obama Trail from Georgia, he wants to take that getting out. Well, guess what? He might lose his thing that he wants.
Yeah, that's right.
And that is why these things will never get taken out of here. We'll always have this stuff. Some of this stuff is legitimate. Some of this stuff is real legitimate. A bridge replacement, 4-lane expansion, things like that. Some of these things are legitimate. Some of them are not. But the way things work in the fucking swamp, if you try to take a stand against that, like a couple people, including Rand Paul, will do, you're not going to be able to get the thing that you want that will get you reelected by your constituents. And when you don't have term limits, this will continue to be a problem.
Yeah, the average American would throw up if they knew what the government was spending on. I mean, I think the previous bill that passed. That was, I don't know how much money that was. And, there was a story put out that the only project as a result of that bill was a heated sidewalk in some obscure like New Hampshire town. And that was it. And I was like, wait a second, what is happening right now? How are we spending billions and trillions of dollars? And the only project that's come of a massive bill like that is they're trying to install heated sidewalks in some small town in New Hampshire that no one's heard of before. So this is what we see as far as the government, what they're doing with our money. And like I said, most people, if they knew what they were really doing with our money, they would probably throw up and fall over and die. But like you said, a lot of people are in a catch-22. They get to Washington, I think with good intentions, right? And they're full of piss and vinegar, and they're like, I'm going to change things. And then they get there, and essentially the group pulls them in and says, hey, listen, this is how it works here. And if you want to stay here, this is what you got to do. Otherwise, you ain't going to be here for long. What do you do at that point? It's about survival. Of course, you're going to want to stay. No one's going to say, well, I don't care. This is what I'm standing for. And if you kick me out of here next term, I don't care. Well, no one's doing that. Everyone wants to stay for as long as possible. And like you said, if there was term limits, well, maybe people wouldn't care. But listen, that's how it works. Like you said, there's Republican spending in there. There's a lot of fat from both sides in there. And like you said, you got to give a little if you want to get a little. And everyone knows that's how the government works. And no one's clean. No one's hands are clean in this. It's just it is what it is. Some of the things are a little insane. The LGBTQ museum, like, I don't know who even proposes that to be in a spending bill like this when we have such other massive things going on. How about more VA hospitals instead of an LGBTQ museum? How about more VA hospitals so we can take care of our veterans who are dying while waiting 6 months to be seen by a VA doctor? I don't know. I don't know. I think that might be a good spend instead of an LGBTQ museum for now. I don't know. But we don't see those things. And it is absolutely maddening as someone who religiously pays their taxes to the federal government. And you see what's going on. You're like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. And I think that, hey, okay, some counties asking for a little assistance because maybe they don't have enough taxpayer funds. They want a little bit of federal funding to build a bridge. Okay, like I don't necessarily want my taxes going to that either, but at least that's like, okay, it is what it is, as opposed to building a museum to, I don't know, like idolize and shrine gay people. There's a lot of people in this country who think that is a sinful life to live. They don't agree with that inherently. So that if that's where federal funding is going, that's a problem for a lot of people. And of course, the other issue that this is all being put forward by a lame duck Congress. That's the balance power is about to be shifted in that House in the next 10 days or maybe a little bit longer, maybe 2 weeks or something like that. That also for a lot of people is a problem trying to ram this bill through right now. So I expect a lot of outrage, but not much action in terms of this massive $1.7 trillion spending bill. And quite frankly, I don't think the government shutting down is as big of a fear for a lot of people as they try to push. Because I think a lot of people would like for that to happen at this point.
Yeah, that's all a dog and pony show. We all know that.
I was in the military when the government shut down, and ain't nothing changed. We didn't shut down, that's for sure. Like we didn't fucking stop. So speaking of that, I've got a Rumble rant over from Pepe Payne for $5. As a vet myself, I'm curious, do you ever feel like you were a pawn used in the game? I know I do. So what I would say is that I had a much different idea of the military going in than I did when I got out. I still think that the vast majority of people who are in the military don't have any ill intentions or anything like that. I 100% feel differently now about interventionism than I did when I joined. My views have changed. What I think we should be spending our money on, our tax dollars, or things like that. My view of government waste has definitely changed. I don't necessarily feel like a pawn, but that's probably because my role as somebody who operated nuclear reactors, I was not somebody that was going out there on the front lines, seeing these things. That wasn't me. So I don't feel that way, but I understand why a lot of people do when they get out. But thank you for the question. And then Pepe Payne for another buck. Suresh, to be fair, Kemp won his governorship while Secretary of State, two wings of the same bird. And that is true. Governor Kemp,
That's true.
He was Secretary of State. There were a lot of calls for him to step down, especially from Stacey Abrams and things like that. But I think the difference is a little bit there that we didn't have this history of documented funny things happening that benefited that party in that state. But I 1,000% agree. We did see Kemp do the same thing. He was Secretary of State. He refused to step down, I believe, or he refused to abdicate his responsibilities as Secretary of State for the election, and he ended up winning governor.
I don't know. And I don't know, to me, I don't know how anyone can counter that. I don't know how anyone can counter. Okay, I'm in a position where I'm overseeing this situation, and I am going to oversee the integrity and authenticity of this situation. And that's my job. That's my role. However, I'm involved in that situation. Like, to me, automatically, Republican, Democrat, I don't care where you are. I don't care if you're running a 7-Eleven. That should be an automatic, hey, you got to step down. You got to step down or relinquish your responsibilities for a time being, give it to someone else and have someone else be in charge, maybe an independent third party. I don't know, but I agree. Fair is fair. A lot of people say that to me a lot of times. They're like, well, how can you say this about, people who say, how can you say this or support maybe Donald Trump on something like that when he says something like this? And I'm like, listen, here, as someone with black skin who's lived in this country, who has had the finger pointed at them and falsely accused of something, you cannot sit here in good conscience and watch it happen to someone else. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter if it's happening to someone who's white, if it's happening to someone who's black, it's happening to a Democrat or a Republican. If I see it happening to anyone else, I'll be the first one to say, that's wrong. That's wrong. And if I sit here and say, well, if it happens to a white person or if it happens to a Democrat, then it's fine. But if it happens to a black person and it happens to a Republican, it's not okay. It's the end of the world and people need to go to jail. That's wrong. I call it as it is. And only people who are true victims of situations like that can understand that and can say that should not happen. Wrong is wrong. I always can tell who the true people are and the people who've actually maybe been a victim of that and experienced that in their life. I can always tell because they're the ones who are kind of even and fair across the lines. The people who have never had that happen to them, they're the ones who are like, Donald Trump's a racist. But this guy over here did the same thing. No, he's fine.
Yeah, he's good.
Wait, what? That person has never had any kind of harm brought to them.
Right. 100%. Sparta Chris for $5. They want to do away with American to further deconstruct American Western civilization. They don't like the U.S. and her people are the best ever. Thank you, Sparta Chris. Zenny Biscuit for $2. I'm fine with beating a dead horse. Thank you, Zenny. And that's our favorite horse racing enthusiast there, Zenny Biscuit. Oh. Scott McKenzie for $5. Any thoughts on the Convention of States movement and what reforms would you recommend for these current topics brought up today? Well, the Convention of States movement, from what I recall, I guess top of mind, if you get a certain majority, it can't just be a majority of states. It has to be like much more than that. You can actually like pass, I think technically like amendments to the Constitution and things like that, if I remember right. But it has to be like 35 or 38 states or something. It has to be like an overwhelming majority of states to do things like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the movement itself, I mean, I think there's a lot of people, and it's getting more mainstream attention, who are increasingly fine with a division of the country.
Yeah.
That's what they want on the left and the right. I think that's a dangerous spot to get into. But yeah, in terms of what I would do about the things we've brought up now, I mean, obviously, I think there's a lot of people who don't want their tax dollars. Like, I think there's a lot of those states who don't want their tax dollars being sent to places like Ukraine, in places protecting borders other than our own. Now, yeah, you know what? there are things around the globe that affect American interests, that affect American security. And there are certain countries that we should keep safe to, to make sure that we stay safe. But when so many Americans are struggling at home, that needs to be the priority, I think, before we worry about a lot of the global interventionism stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe that there were some people who actually did not agree with and align Americans who didn't agree with and align with the statement America first. Like when I saw people going against that and say, "Oh, America first," that's like racist or this or that. And I'm like, how is that a bad thing? How is America first a bad sentiment in any way, shape, or form? Everyone's, well, let me not say everyone, but most people have been on an airplane. And before the airplane even backs out from the gate, one of the things they go over is what happens in the event of what? Loss in cabin pressure. The mask will drop down. And the thing that we've all heard 1,000 times is put your mask on first and then help your child or others. But you put your mask on first. Can you imagine someone standing up and saying, flight attendant, that is wrong. That's racist. That's whatever. Putting your mask on first and worrying about yourself first is wrong. It's bad. It's stupid. It's whatever. People would look at that person and be like, what are you talking about? You got to put your mask on first. You can't help someone else out if you pass out, right? We can't help anyone else out effectively and powerfully if our country is falling apart or falls apart. So yeah, America should be, even though these lunatics that are all about sending billions to everywhere in the world, and fine, okay, but you can't do that if our own country is falling apart. That eventually will not only just end, we won't be able to do it. So even those idiots should be, yeah, we need America first because we need to be able to sustain what we have so we can continue sending billions around the world to help other people protect their borders. And that makes that's common sense. But once again, it is all about how does it look? How's it look? We got to be ultra woke and send billions everywhere, help everyone else. And if you talk about our borders, you're a racist. It's insane.
Yeah, and I think that obviously America first, there are some people, there's a couple different America first, right? There's like the mainstream conservative America first, and there's also America first that some people consider, oh, those people, the people that are banned off everywhere, we don't want to touch them. So I think that's how they started trying to get America first a bad name. But the reality is, regardless of where the message is coming from, or regardless of the intention, the idea of putting America first, putting Americans first above all, and then worried about the rest of people, that's something that a lot of people in this country can get behind. And I think it's continuing. I think the people that are okay with America first and are okay with like, crying America first and yelling that on the top of their lungs, I think it's going up, not down. And I think it's a good thing. Matthew Hammond for 5. Finally, Ryan and Suresh not being interrupted by Jeremy. JK, Merry Christmas to Suresh and all the Geeks and Gamers crew. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
And then again, for $5, do we need a firearm outreach program to green card holders to change the idea of pew-pews in people's minds from other cultures that do not have 2A? I don't think the biggest problem is green card holders when it comes to guns here in this country. I think it's I think it's white privileged elites who have armed protection of their own, but are trying to convince everybody else to give up their guns. And I think they are able to control the minds of people who aren't necessarily elites or anything like that, but are just in lockstep with the Progressive Democratic Party. And they're convinced that all the bad things that happen in the world, it must just be because someone has a gun and not because there's a mental health problem in this country. So.
Yeah. I think anyone with common sense realizes that, in the grand scheme of things, no, it's not guns that are a problem. It's the people with bad intentions that are mentally ill or whatever. That's the real problem. And that is confirmed when you look at situations where I think Canada just had a situation where a group of, I think, teenagers, they call it swarming. They swarmed and stabbed a homeless man to death. and I think it was like a group of 8 teenage girls, and they stabbed a homeless man to death, and they stabbed him with a knife. So the thing that it always shows its face when something horrific happens and it involves like a knife or a hammer or something other than a gun, and all of a sudden no one's really talking about what was used, and they're talking about, oh my God, there's a mental health crisis, or there's this, or there's this, or there's this. No one talks about the gun. However, if the same exact crime is committed with a gun, the only talking point would be gun violence, gun control, and we see it time and time again. I can tell you right now that if 8 girls in America surrounded a homeless man and stabbed him to death, it would be like, this is a problem. What's going on? There's some issues in mental health and teens and blah, 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 blah. If those same 8 girls surrounded a homeless man and shot him, it would be, it's all about the gun. It's all about the gun. It's all about the gun. We got to get guns off the streets. We got to, what happened? We need stricter gun laws. So that is the telltale sign that when people talk like that, I'm like, all right, I'm done, because you didn't say that when it was a knife or a hammer or an axe. You didn't say that. But the second a gun's involved, you're like, oh, it's a gun.
And there's other stuff that goes into play too, like where it happened, what color of the people that it happened from or happened to. Like, you know damn well, like in Chicago that has super strict fucking gun laws, when there's 40 shootings every weekend, no one's talking about gun control in Chicago because it doesn't work. But if one crazy dude, a crazy white young guy, takes a rifle into a school, then it's all about the gun and nothing about mental health. So we know the things that are played out in the country, and it's obviously it's tragic whenever anyone dies of that, but to see it politicized so heavily is ridiculous. But that is it for us, guys. That's it for us this week. Next week, we will be back on Jeremy's channel, D-Day Cobra. I assume he's planning on doing it when he gets back. That'll be a couple days after Christmas, so we should be good. Yeah. But Suresh, your channel is linked in the description. What can people find when they go there?
Listen, I am focused more on the news stories and some of the factual things that are coming out that people want to know. That's what I wanted to focus my channel, as most of the people watching today. I'm not opposed to calling out things that are shady, wrong, illegitimate on the right, and I'm not just completely focused on all the craziness that's happening on the left. So the purpose of the channel, the situation with Suresh, is to give you the facts, and let you make your own opinion, because I am crazy enough to, I guess, believe that the people who are watching my channel can hear the facts and the information I'm going to provide. And sometimes it's not stuff you're not seeing some of the stuff in the mainstream media. And I believe that the people watching can form their own opinion and take from that what they will. And that's all I'm doing here. It's just news, information, some of the crazy stories going on, and giving you some of the bits that they're leaving out, and then letting you form your own opinion. And huge thanks to Ryan, you, Jeremy, the whole Geeks and Gamer network and family. The channel is growing every single day. So thank you to everyone. And that's it. Just an authentic, down the middle news source that you guys can trust and believe in. And I have some insights that I think are a little bit more powerful because of my background in law enforcement, my background as the son of an immigrant, my background as a person of color living in this country as an American. Stanford, go ahead and take that down. So to me, I have some different, I viewed this world and experienced this world with a different set of eyes. And I like to share that with people, because a lot of the stuff that you're seeing out that's being pushed out to you is coming from one direction. And I think I have a little bit of a different view on a lot of these things, and it's refreshing, and people seem to be enjoying it. So like I said, thanks to everyone in the Geeks and Gamers community to help grow the channel, and 221B Tactical community as well.
Hell yeah, man. It's awesome. It's awesome to see the channel growing, and it's only going to go up and up and up, especially because all these fucking people in the political landscape keep giving us things to talk about. So that's the good news and the bad news. But we're going to keep you guys up to date on all of it. Thank you for being here today, guys. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Have a good one. Peace.
See you, everyone.